Doing. Somebody wants me to mention something about Napa Valley or wine vineyards that I'm the owner of in reference to my mother and father and grandparents' estates. Those wine vineyards can advertise, and they kind of need to advertise who I am and what I'm the owner of. So the government can't try to infiltrate, and so they can't try to throw employees off the property, or if somebody gets fired from any of the companies of my mother and father, there has to be a reason. I don't believe in just bullshit. But the history of things, of what the companies are very important, and it's disrespectful for people not to advertise that I'm the owner of the companies of my mother and father. I don't play no tricks with nobody's bullshit. The companies run on a certain plan, a certain processes of companies, and there's time management involved in that too, and things like that. But it's not nothing is supposed to be any type of back-breaking shit, at the companies. So, but it's very important in reference to all the companies: food and beverage, farmland, manufacturing, clothing, apparel, or anything. Everybody needs to advertise and tell the employees of the companies of what companies I'm the owner of. Okay? It's very important. If somebody is refusing to do that, then that means they're conspiring against my ownership. I've always been a good person. I've always been a nice person. People have been abusing me since I was a little boy. People have tried to steal things with their front men, their government men, and all their tricks. And the records department in Washington, D.C., need to contact all the properties and all the companies and ask them who claims to be the owner. They have a list of all the properties that I'm the owner of, all the companies and business locations. So it's very important that I'm not sure how many people they got, but, it should be kind of enjoyable for them to contact the companies and be like, hey, we got records right here. Who's the owner of that? And how come the owner hasn't received any monies from there? Or how come the owner's being held hostage in a little house in Indianapolis? See, they're holding me hostage with satellites. If I go outside, they start burning me. Even if I'm inside, they've been burning me. And this satellite man tried to claim he thought he owned this house or something. And the satellite man has made up all kinds of psycho shit. I was trained in satellite technology, so when they try to communicate certain things, then some things I know what some things are. But other than that, some of the shit I don't even know what they're trying to say. But them hitting me in the teeth, that's not good at all. That doesn't communicate a fucking thing. That's just them trying to tear up the way a person looks. And don't forget, my parents was above the government. So in reference to the government terrorizing me, it's attempted murder. And there have been some governors and mayors that have tried to communicate. Like the Chicago governor said hello. Sometimes Connecticut governor tries to say hello. See, all the government offices have satellite communications. The governors and mayors, and most police stations do too. So in reference to, places, they have like a satellite communication, and the studios, they do too. So in reference to, TV stations or radio stations. Oh yeah, and somebody wants it known, in reference to Indianapolis, Indiana, they want people to know which TV stations and radio stations I'm the owner of. There's different people that run in management. There's people that work in management. But in reference to companies that I'm the owner of, people want to know what companies I'm the owner of. See, these people tried to ruin the companies. They tried to ruin my ownership when I'm the rightful owner. They tried to call me a fake. They tried to slander my parents' character. They made up lies slandering my character. They messed up the way I talk by damaging my upper lip. And that's copywritten. My voice is copywritten. So in reference to the government damaging my face and teeth, they have to get prosecuted. I have not received a fucking penny yet. And then there's some other government man that is obviously conspiring against me, and he's working for some government people. And he tried to steal my identity, and he's the one that's been stealing my lawsuit monies and my benefits. And that man has to get prosecuted. Now, in reference to teeth damage, now let's hear all the different things that people say about teeth damage. What does a person say about a person that has teeth damage? They make up drugs. They make up alcoholism. They make up violent behavior. They make up violent history. No. They make up bad nutrition. All the food I eat is FDA approved. All the beverages I drink are FDA approved. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do drugs. But alcohol is legal. So, in reference to I don't do drugs, period. But I'm a bartender, too. And I've been a bartender for numerous years. Even though I don't work in a bar most of the time. I have a bartender's license. Plus, my mother and father owned bars and restaurants that served different beverages, such as some restaurants served Pepsi, some of them served Coca-Cola, some of them served, one of those two products from those companies, products from those companies and other companies that served other things, beverages, And they're all copywritten, protected, and I'm the owner of the companies. So in reference to of my mother and father's company. So in reference to anybody playing tricks, the records department needs to speak to those people. And the Alo Bertolli spaghetti sauce and sauces that Satellite Man's been hitting me in the teeth and the face. It's more lawsuits. But, in reference to the companies and, I probably should be up in Napa Valley. Just my mother and father had mansions up there too, didn't they? Oh, and another thing, I should be somewhere. I'm being held hostage here. I'm supposed to be at my mother and father's mansions. Or a new mansion close to my mother and father's properties. Very important. Or a mansion, one of my mother and father's properties. Somebody needs to ask these people why they're blocking me from my mother and father's property. Nothing's ever for sale. So, people need to ask these people why they're blocking me. They can't live there. Nothing is ever for sale. It's royal bloodline. 100% bloodline. I'm the only 100% bloodline of my mother and father. And grandparents. Nobody else is. So the records department needs to ask these people why they're blocking me from my mother and father's mansions. And there's restraining orders on these people. So these people could not live in the neighborhood of where my mother and father's mansions are at. So people blocking me from my mother and father's mansions, those people could not live in the vicinity of my mother and father's mansions either. Because those people violated my mother and father's rights. Some of them violated my grandparents' rights. And some of them have violated my rights. So them blocking me from my mother and father's mansions, people should be like, what are you doing that close to his mansion? Is what they'd say to these people. Like, what are you doing that close to my mansion? How'd you get there? No. You're not allowed to live close to my mother and father's mansions. You're not allowed to live in that neighborhood. You're not allowed to live close to where I'm supposed to be living at. So the records department needs to issue more restraining orders against those people and force those people to move out of the fucking neighborhoods. They don't have a right. So we need to know who the hell is blocking me from my mother and father's mansions. And the records department has legal right to force those people to move. If they live anywhere near my mother or father's mansions. Anybody that's blocking me from my mother and father's mansions. Or my mother and father's yachts. Low Coast Guard, how you guys doing? But this Satellite Man was terrorizing me, this government man, when there's been governors and mayors that have tried to communicate to me, knowing that these people have been holding me hostage. And, these government people need to get prosecuted for their crimes. There's term limits in America, so in reference to governors and mayors that are good governors and mayors, you got to be doing your job, because when they look at the history of the situation, because there's got to be a review every administration about, and during the administration, wondering why I haven't received monies. Like, for instance, I'm being held hostage by some dirty government people. So these dirty government people are holding me hostage. And the good government people, you should be wondering why they're doing this. Because it's illegal. And it's going to end up on everybody's record during their administrations. And after their administrations. So the question is, which ones are the good governors and mayors and which ones are not. I'm still being held hostage. My mother and father owned mansions in Chicago and Illinois. My parents owned mansions in other cities and states, and businesses and companies. And my mother and father had accounts in several different states that I'm the owner of, that the banks are blocking me from. I even took my identification into the bank. I even took my identification into the bank in Las Vegas when I traveled out there. They said they didn't know nothing. So there has to be somebody from the records department that goes over to that bank and says, hey, how come you said you didn't know who he is? In reference to them saying they didn't know who I am, or something. My father owned most of Las Vegas, didn't he? Anyways, my father had numerous names, legal right of names and family names. So did my mother. Lengthy family names, bloodline family names. So, in reference to these government people trying to play tricks, I can't give a name to any child either. My name is my name. I have to hold all the names. No child of mine would ever be named after me. In reference to last names, so don't ever forget that. My family names are not transferable. I'm the only child of my mother and father, and I'm the only one that has legal right of all the names of my mother and father and grandparents and family history and copyrights. So it's very important. So, in reference to the situation of people disagreeing with that, they can go to court, whoever they are. Roll protocols forever of my identity. And, in reference to Beverly Hills or Bel Air, the deeds department or the records department needs to go over and ask the Beverly Hills Council who the hell's blocking me from my mother and father's mansions. And any of the states or any of the cities. Very important. Never signed, never gave, never sold, never, not ever going to, not never.